Today's launch between President Moon Jae-in and President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol has been postponed. Both sides merely said that the details haven't been worked out yet, without revealing any specific reasons.
청와대 and President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol's office simultaneously announced that today's lunch meeting between the two men has been postponed. The two sides said this morning that the meeting will be rescheduled for a later date because working-level negotiations haven't been concluded yet. They added that discussions will continue to take place. The president-elect spokesperson, Kim Eun-hye, explained that the two sides had agreed not to reveal why the luncheon was postponed. When asked who first asked to push back the meeting, she declined to answer, saying the decision was the result of working-level negotiations. Senior Secretary for Political Affairs, Lee Chul-hee, and the President-elect's Chief of Staff, Chang Jae-won, were working out the specifics of the meeting. Some political commentators believe that a problem might have occurred as they were talking about the pardoning of ex-President Lee Myung-bak, an issue Yoon had already promised to bring up at the meeting. Also, Yoon had asked to talk about the appointment of public cooperation and government agency officials at the end of the current administration. The presidential office publicly stated that it would make appointments before the administration ends, which might have caused a problem. The first meeting between President Moon and the president-elect is likely to take place sometime next week.
Now, as we just reported, the meeting between President Moon Jae-in and President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol has been postponed. Now, one of the reasons is disagreements between the two over personnel issues at public agencies. Yoon wants the incumbent administration to discuss personal matters with him, whereas 청와대 says the president has the right to appoint officials during his tenure.
The Korea Growth Investment Corporation operates the New Deal Fund amounting to 20 trillion won. 2 days ago, it was about to elect a new CEO, but the plans were postponed all of a sudden. The corporation apparently took into consideration the president-elect's transition committee as the incumbent administration's term in office ends soon.
개연적인 판단이라고 생각하시면 될 것 같고요.
President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol has also publicly mentioned his personnel management rights. He wants public agencies to be headed by people who share his administration's views. In other words, he is demanding the incumbent administration refrain from appointing the chiefs of public corporations in the final days of its tenure.
문재인 정부에서 꼭 필요한 인사의 경우에는 저희와 함께 협의를 진행을 하고 그렇지 않을 경우에는 업무 인수 인계가 원활하게 진행될 수 있도록 요청을 한 상태입니다.
Kwon Sung-dong of the PPP recently said Prosecutor General Kim Ho-soo should decide on his future course. With a guilty verdict issued regarding the Environment Ministry's blacklist, the lawmakers' remarks apparently mean that replacing the chiefs of public agencies, whose term in office has not expired yet, would be difficult after the new administration is inaugurated. 청와대 says it's unaware of the request to discuss personal matters at state-run corporations. The nation's top office made it clear that the Moon administration, whose term ends on May 9th, has the right to appoint officials before the end of its tenure. The two sides could clash again when choosing a successor to Bank of Korea Governor Lee Ju-yeol, whose term ends in late March.
President-elect Yoon Suk-yeol's camp is considering moving the presidential office to the Defense Ministry compound in Seoul's Yongsan area. Now, this is because his earlier pledge to relocate the office to the Gwanghwamun area entails major concerns related to cost and security.
Yoon Suk-yeol's team has been reviewing the idea of moving the presidential office to the Defense Ministry building located in Yongsan. Yoon's campaign pledge to have the office at the Seoul government complex in Gwanghwamun has presented some limitations. The relocation would cost some 50 billion won, while security concerns are another red flag. On the other hand, the Defense Ministry building currently has idle space and security is also less challenging. There are not many high-rise buildings and sealing off the president's office is easier in this area. In this case, the underground bunker and helicopter pad do not need to be left at the current presidential office, completely freeing up the site to be used by the public. When the envisioned Yongsan Park opens, a presidential office in the same area could also facilitate better communication with the public. One official in Yoon's camp preparing for the relocation said he will recommend the Defense Ministry site in Yongsan based on various factors. But the official said the final decision lies with the president-elect. If the top office does indeed move to Yongsan, Yoon's presidential residence is likely to be the defense minister or foreign minister's official residence in the Hannam-dong area. In order to start his first day as president at the new office on May 10th, Yoon is expected to finalize a relocation plan soon.
Now turning to COVID-19 updates, daily COVID-19 cases, which remained above 300,000 for the fourth straight day, have now surpassed the 400,000 mark and recorded an all-time high of 400,741 cases. The surge is due to the Omicron wave nearing its peak and also because rapid antigen tests conducted by medical professionals began to be accepted as official results starting this week.
A long line stretching some 20 meters has formed outside a hospital. On the second day of rapid antigen tests carried out by medical experts being officially counted, people have flocked to get the test.
30분 정도 기다렸어요. 그래요, 아버니까 이거 끝이 없어서 지금도 이제 한 얼만큼 걸릴지도 모르겠네요.
Hospitals and clinics have increased staff, but it's not enough to handle the sheer testing volume and other related work.
주소나 이제 그런 부분을 좀 후에 할 수 있도록 좀 간소화 좀 통해서 환자가 재빨리 좀 처리 좀 받을 수 있었으면 좋겠습니다.
Daily infections have shot up by 38,000 in a single day. The past 24 hours also reported 164 more deaths. The upward trend is expected to continue for the time being.
동네 병의원에서 신속 항원 검사를 받고 결과가 양성일 경우 확진이 인정되기 때문에 확진자 숫자가 당분간 좀 늘어날 것으로 예상하고 있습니다.
The number of critically ill patients is also at a record high of 1,244, pushing up the ICU bed occupancy rate nationwide to 64%. 75% occupancy indicates a dangerous level, and over 80% signals saturation. The country faces another critical juncture where securing enough hospital beds is being urgently called for.
The most challenging part of fighting recent wildfires in Ulsan and Samtok was protecting Keungang pine woods on Roaring Mountains. A forest road played a crucial part in containing the flames.
Raging flames spread as close as 500 meters from Keungang pine woods due to strong winds. The wildfires almost destroyed the indigenous trees, but thanks to a forest road built there a year ago, they survived. Measuring 5 meters wide and 7.4 kilometers long, the road played a crucial part in helping firefighters and fire engines approach the woods quickly, unlike on the steep Mount Eungbong nearby. Pumping wells, each containing 6,000 liters of water, were installed in 4 parts of the road to supply water to fire trucks around the clock.
나무가지, 나뭇잎 같은 연료 물질이 확산되는 것을 물리적으로 차단시켜주는 효과가 있었고요.
Forest roads help take care of forests and transport forest products, but few of them exist in Korea. Currently, an average of 3.6 meters of forest roads are installed per hectare of forest land in the nation, just 10% of the average length installed in Germany and Austria. Japan has 13 meters of forest roads per hectare of forest land. Funding for building forest roads is provided to local governments through state funds allocated for developing impoverished areas. But oftentimes, forest roads are at the bottom of the local government's priority lists. Moreover, obtaining consent from landowners for installing roads in private woods is not easy.
산림 경영을 더욱 효율화시키고 산불 등의 보호에도 크게 기여하여 산림의 가치를 크게 높일 수가 있습니다. 그러므로 임도 사업에 대한 적극적인 예산 확보와 인식 전환도 필요하겠습니다.
The Korea Forest Service plans to increase forest roads to 5.5 meters per hectare of state forests by 2030 and adorn them with recreational, welfare, and sightseeing features to publicize their importance.
Yesterday was the 10th anniversary of the enactment of the Korea-US Free Trade Agreement. Korea reaped much benefit from the trade deal, such as nearly doubling the trade surplus. But there are many issues in other sectors, like an increased import of American beef, causing the decline of small Korean beef producers. Here's a look at Korea's gains and losses from the FTA.
This factory manufactures pistons for automotive engines. About 20% of the total output is exported to the US. Their export has increased more than 8-fold since the signing of the Chorus FTA and subsequent removal of the import duty.
불과 수 %지만 그게 영향이 굉장히 크거든요. 관세 혜택이 있고 그다음에 이제 아무래도 수출하는데 그 한미 간의 그 우호적인 영향이 컸기 때문에
Korea's automotive parts industry is one of the sectors that benefited from the FTA. Car exports to the US grew at an average of 7% annually after a 2.5% tariff on automobiles and parts was removed. As a result, automobiles and automotive components account for 25% of Korea's export to the US. More noticeably, the export of electric vehicles has nearly tripled every year, spurred on by America's environment-friendly policies. Secondary batteries and synthetic resin exporters also saw their annual growth rates average between 15 to 20%. On the other hand, the import of American crude oil and gas increased dramatically from almost zero. The import of American beef, which Korean farmers had protested strongly against, recorded an average increase of about 13% per year. In the process, the number of small cattle farmers fell more than 40% over the past 10 years.
축산물 자급률이 반토막 났으며 축산 농가 수도 급감했습니다. 2026년 관세 제로와 혈압과 폭등에 대한 축산농가 지원 대책 마련이 시급합니다.
However, some experts say the livestock industry has been reshaped as the number of large cattle farmers that raise more than 50 cows has actually risen.
In Cheonan, Chungcheongnam-do Province, an elderly lady who seriously injured her finger was unable to get surgery after she tested positive to COVID-19. Doctors who heard about the predicament thought of a tactful plan and successfully treated the lady's hand in time.
Medical personnel wearing protective suits transfer a patient using a negative pressure carrier. In the OR, a surgical suture is immediately performed with only the patient's hand placed out of the carrier. The patient is a 72-year-old lady who injured her hand. While working at a restaurant on March 2nd, her left ring finger got caught in a noodle-making machine. Her hand needed to be stitched up right away, but just before the surgery, she tested positive for COVID-19. Due to the infection, she only received emergency care and struggled to find a hospital for proper treatment and waited at home for over a day.
너무 그냥 당황했죠. 그래서 빨리 이거부터 봉합을 해야 될 것 같은데 이제 안 된다 그러니까는.
It was a precarious situation where she could have lost a finger in a worst-case scenario. Her family requested help from a local public health center. News of her situation quickly reached a hospital in Cheonan. The staff at this hospital thought of ways to carry out surgery in an OR that has no negative pressure facility. They finally came up with the idea of using a negative pressure carrier used to transport infected patients. The patient only needs to put her hand out of the carrier for the surgery.
환자에 대한 어떻게 치료할 건가 치료를 하겠다는 생각만 하면은 뭐 사실은 어떤 수단과 방법을 가리지 않고 할 수 있는 부분이 있던 것 같습니다.
The operation was successful, and the elderly lady, who has now recovered from COVID-19 as well, is waiting for her hand to completely heal.
나 같은 사람이 또 있을 수도 있잖아요. 치료할 수 있다는 그런 저기가 너무 고맙고 그 생각만 하면 나도 눈물이 나요.
The medical staff's quick thinking and determination to treat a patient in whatever circumstances there may be help protect someone's precious hand.